Lately, I've been thinking a lot about online learning communities, given the fact that we have been going through this ongoing pandemic for a year now, and all sorts of social interaction and learning and communication have gone online. Anything that requires close proximity has gone online. Jargons or terminologies that we use these days. For example, and let me look at my iPad, remote learning, online education, hybrid learning, flipped classroom, distance education, virtual learning. Basically, when teaching and learning and knowledge dissemination happen online, we need to know that the technology being used, the tech backend, is only a tool. It's a tool that's used as part of the process within online learning communities. I was reading an article on STEM education and how teachers are designing more interactive, engaging experience into their courses to achieve net positive learning outcome. So here's the article in the journal Chemistry Education Research and Practice. Long story short, I came across this concept of Community of Inquiry, COI framework. Community of Inquiry framework was developed by Dr. Randy Garrison at the University of Calgary, I believe, in Canada. Dr. Randy Garrison defines Community of Inquiry framework as a collaborative, constructive learning environment. And I'll go over that a little bit in the rest of the talk, but we need to understand that teachers are the facilitators, and given everything that I have shared with you so far, it's easy to understand that it's quite challenging for teachers to sort of juggle multiple complexities of different proportions and dimensions. For example, you have to deal with the subject matter, the course, if you will, physics, biology, philosophy, etc. You then have to also deal with the level, the rigor. Is it the course level introductory 101, or is it more advanced? Then there's the matter of duration, how long it is, how long will the course last, and so forth. So there is always a delicate balance that the teacher has to constantly calibrate. And if the teacher facilitation is done too much or too little, you're going to end up with a different kind of learning experience. Whether it's going to be ruined or whether it's going to be a wonderful learning outcome depends on how the facilitation is done. Okay, that said, let's get into the COI, the Community of Inquiry framework. The three parts of COI framework include teaching presence, which means teacher, facilitator, instructor presence. Number 2 is social presence, and number 3 is cognitive presence. If we go directly to the diagram here, so yes, very black and white monochrome figure right here, showing 3 circles in a Venn diagram, and the 3 circles are overlapping. Again, you can see the teaching presence, social presence, cognitive presence right there, and of course the overlaps are basically the bridging interactions between each and every circle right there. And I want to go to a more colorful picture of the same framework, which is right here. And so once again, here is teaching presence, here is social presence, and cognitive presence in orange. Teaching presence or teacher presence. Well, it's easier to do so in a face-to-face context, but we are not talking about that. We are talking about online learning environment. So teachers have to be mindful of that. They need to be more intentional, more direct, and explicit with their instruction. So it's easy for learners to navigate the online curriculum. So I have some notes jotted down from all the readings I've done, and hopefully some of you will find them handy. For example, an uncluttered, easy-to-use website that directs users, the learners, to specific assignments and resources. That will be a good start. Clarity is the key. Speaking of structure, by the way, clearly defined virtual office hours will be a good start again. Teacher presence, which includes visibility. Now that could mean feedback on discussion boards, lessons with Personalization, like your own handwritten notes, taken together, holistically speaking, when learners get to see you by video, hear your voice, it all makes for a wonderfully coherent and enjoyable learning, authentic learning experience. Next up is social presence. So this one's a little bit tricky because we are, after all, talking about a social experience within the boundaries of virtual environment. So we need to make sure that we build a community of learning where every learner or student is an engaged stakeholder. So learners need to interact, participate in groups, pairs, cohorts, meaning collaboration is crucial. Now, social presence requires social interaction, and in a virtual environment that we have been thrust into during this pandemic, it is all the more important that this interaction has a healthy dose of empathy. Now we are coming to the last part of Community of Inquiry framework, cognitive presence. This is where we are focusing on content, the actual course material. Again, a reminder, the context in which learning is happening is drastically different when we are talking about remote education as opposed to face-to-face interaction. So more deliberate structure is needed. We need to accommodate multidimensional ways of presenting learning concepts, starting from online readings to watching YouTube videos to small group interaction, group discussions, etc. The point being that teachers need to be mindful and need to be aware and intentional in designing their courses and delivering their courses. By the way, feedback and assessment also are part of this process, part of the cognitive presence. I hope you will find this introduction to Community of Inquiry framework somewhat helpful. As for myself, I will be reading this book, E-Learning in the 21st Century, written by Dr. Randy Garrison, and I will also take a look at this peer-reviewed publication for my own knowledge. Now, if you're interested in learning more about COI framework, I found the editorials written mostly by Dr. Randy Garrison, written by Dr. Randy Garrison himself, to be supremely helpful. Okay, the references are all included here and will be included in the description of YouTube channel. By the way, subscribe, and don't forget, stay inspired, stay safe.